So good morning. As I've just been introduced, I am Ren Watson. But on the programme, I'm Karen. It's the same person, so there's no confusion. I work at MyData Digital in the UK, and I have a background as business and process analyst, so I'm not particularly technical, nor am I a long-standing data and privacy guru. However, since joining MyData Digital, I have been submerged, as have all of our recruits, into a culture, an ethos, with a keen eye on human-centric empowerment over the use and value of personal data. Underpinning all of our activities is the need to put the citizen at the heart of the control of their data. It's not difficult to be engaged with this subject matter on a daily basis. Today, I'm here to talk to you about organisations and their trustworthiness in the eyes of their consumers. These are not new topics, but they're still discussed with much enthusiasm across all industries. I also hope to overlay that with a bit of a GDPR wrapper and the impact that this is having for organisations that we've been talking to. So the theme of this track is GDPR is the new black. I love it. Given that I'm a fashionista, clearly not modern, I was really keen to be involved. Also very technical here. The new black typically being a seasonal fashion phase giving a temporary rise in significance to a particular theme or colour, I felt that there was a real easy way to equate this to GDPR being the latest on-trend must-have. To stake my claim, I am firmly in the camp where black as the latest fashion fad is not the case here. It should be part of the capsule business wardrobe. And this is a Got Wan reference. He is a UK fashion aficionado promoting body positivity, so there is a very tenuous connection to that of data positive behaviours. GDPR is not the latest trend, but is and should continue to be an everyday part of business as usual, taking into consideration the underlying people-centric principles for dealing with personal data. Sorry, this is me. I don't know all my words, so I'm cribbing. Those organisations who are currently adhering to the existing data protection legislation should not find this a giant leap. We're not trying to put a man on the moon here. Lawfulness, fairness, and even transparency are existing principles. Sorry, just ruining everything.
I think you're going to have to restart the presentation, the slide deck, because it's in something of Zoom mode right
Very big picture. Sorry. We love Got Wan though.
There you go.
That's fine. Yeah. Thank you. So most, if not all, leaders in this area of personal data, trust and trustworthiness are more than aware of the World Economic Forum's research from 2014. This has been formative or even confirmative for many human-centric organisations' beliefs in the use and state of data in this digital era. It also highlights how people and users of services feel that they are treated with regards to their data. In short, trust in all types of organisations has declined. This research has shown that both informed data users and the general population do not trust organisations with what they know about us. And this in our minds is often what we know that we gave to the organisation or what we think we know that we gave to the organisation in the first place. It doesn't include appended data from other sources, IP data, tracking data, those CRM notes that they wrote about you that day you called up being really grumpy, and so on. Then you have privacy policies that are unclear, practices where data is being reused beyond the original collection purpose, and the confusing opt-in and opt-out mechanisms. All of these add to consumer doubt about the control that they have over their data usage and the value exchange that they are getting in these transactions. This research was 3 years ago. In this fast-moving data growth world where this research is really significant, surely things have moved on. Just this year, both PwC and Edelman have provided further research to show that things have not improved. Why not? Had a great time here. Building trust takes a long time, especially when an organisation or one of its peers has been subject to investigation for failing to follow data protection rules or even been subject to a data breach. In established organisations or sectors, negative press for any reason can have wide-reaching ramifications across a common industry. For example, the charity sector in the UK was rocked at the end of last year and the beginning of this year when a number of fines were levied against them for not following data protection rules. This included wealth screening, data sharing, and appending records without the knowledge of their supporter base, leaving the ICO with no choice but to reprimand them, and then the charity sector themselves uncertain how they could continue in their activities and still prepare for the compliance with the incoming GDPR. And these are the good guys trying to fulfill great causes. I'm going to drink. Many organisations that we've talked to are really struggling to understand and to know where to start in their GDPR journey. And this is often because their databases have evolved beyond all recognition. They have to unpick their practices, locate and classify the data that they are holding, and in many cases make both a semantic and practical shift in the activities that they have been performing as part of their business. This whilst also trying to reconcile duplicate records with different data sets across their multiple databases. So many organisations are looking at consumer preferences by way of trying to be compliant. And by this, they generally mean the channel of communication that the consumer has selected, or even actually just the communication data that has been collected as mandatory in a form, or those checkboxes that are pre-selected, generally in the favour of the organisation. All of these forming the method of communication that the organisation feels that they can use, being seen as consent. None of this puts the consumer first. In contemplating a transparent data processing landscape, all organisations need to know what data they are holding, where and when it was collected, who is using that data and for what purpose. This also needs to be clear to their consumers. Additionally, they have to try to determine the relevant processing justification under Article 6 of GDPR. And we have noticed this being particularly tricky for a lot of our clients, especially in respect of direct marketing. It is true that under Recital 47, direct marketing has the possibility to be a legitimate interest. But once you've really drilled down into your database, understood the levels of engagement of your consumers, is it really a legitimate interest to continue marketing to that person if they are not actively and regularly engaged with you? Does legitimate interest form a people-first practice? Does legitimate interest build trust in your organisation? Naturally, there will be exceptions to this because there's a whole due diligence element of looking at your database. And again, I'll use a charity example. I have pledged a legacy donation to a charity. I feel that that organisation does have a legitimate interest to keep in touch with me until that legacy is realised, at which point they can no longer contact me anyway. One very bold charity in the UK decided to campaign for an opt-in approach with their supporters in the wake of the charity trust decline and in the run-up to their GDPR compliance programme. They wanted to actively prove that their relationships were built in trust and transparency. The Royal National Lifeboat Institution, which is quite a mouthful to say when you stood up here, the RNLI, controversially campaigned for opt-ins across their supporter database. It is on record that this was no easy task to complete, having to undergo a complete cultural shift and also acknowledging that they expect an income shortfall at the end of this. However, they believed that it was right to ensure that they had a genuinely engaged supporter database who trusted them and their use of their supporters' data. This does not mean that as an organisation they are fully compliant with the incoming GDPR, but it is a massively strong message that in requesting consent they have moved their strategic model forwards, ensuring that they have a well understood, usable database with actively engaged contacts, which in a world of transparency and empowerment can surely only be a positive statement. Yes, I can have a legitimate interest to contact you, but if you actively engage with me and consent to me using your data, then I know you want this information. And then when you decide that you, in this example, move to the desert and no longer have any need of a lifeboat, then you can freely withdraw your consent. I, as an organisation, will respect that. We can both move forward. This is not a common example. In discussions we are having with clients, old and new, we are coming across the same issues. Consent is hard to obtain and maintain. Organisations are not ready for this cultural shift. They need to rethink their engagement strategies, along with understanding the gaps in terms of meeting the new data protection regime. They need to communicate clearly without overwhelming and disengaging their consumers. In conducting our own search term research, a similar picture is arising. Preferences are discussed and cited as a solution to meet GDPR requirements. Consent is way, way lower in hits, and where consent is researched, it's generally specifically in terms of medical research, nothing to do with GDPR. Many people are generically searching for data protection and principles. This seems to miss the point. Putting your consumers first will help progress your relationships. No longer will you need to waste money on trying to call me on the fake number that I put in that form that you made me put in. Or keep sending me those emails or letters that I never actually open anyway. This does not mean that consent is the right lawful basis for processing all data, and that is up to the organisation to determine. However, in a world where consumers are giving you significant amounts of data to drive your insights, isn't it worth considering that where you do claim a legitimate interest, you actually put your consumer first? Their thoughts, their interest, their trust. Give that control back to them as engaged and trusting parties, allowing them to consent to you using their data. And then at the point where they disengage, it's simple. They withdraw their consent and the value exchange in that context ends. Simple steps and a rethinking of your traditional models will help maintain your engagement. Data is given on a trust basis. Therefore, both the data and the trust that it brings are assets that need to be managed wisely. Putting your consumers first will give you far more valuable insights for your business. GDPR itself is just a framework to help you give control back to your consumers. It gives you the ability to be transparent about the data collection and usage. It is not easy being a trusted organisation, but it can build the loyalty that you need to be transparent about data collection and usage. It can take you beyond the new black for this season. Thank you.